Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Irish Constitution Hour. The date today is March 9th, 2025. It is the Lenten season, and I just want to send my thoughts and prayers out to everybody during this Lenten season. Very appropriate. I am your host, Joshua from Canada. Joining me is my co-host, Sarah from Era, and our constitutional analyst, Mark Anthony. This is our 8th episode. Yes, 8th episode of a 12-part treatise of the 1937 Bunreacht na hÉireann. I am working on my pronunciation. One day I will get it. I hope I'm pretty close. Bunreacht na hÉireann. Today's episode is focused on Article 41. This is going to be interesting, for this particular article was of consequence not too long ago when the discussion of right to life was being had. So we are going to endeavor into that territory today, and it shall be fascinating. Sarah Fermera is going to, as always, lead us off by providing a baseline of facts for our discussion. And at this point, I will hand the mic over to Sarah for her opening remarks. Go ahead, Sarah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome today. Remember, you can go on to bunreacht1937.ie and download the PDF of the Irish Constitution, and you can go through the website and see the literal English translation of the Clode Gaelic of the various articles. All right, and there's a lot of other very good information on that website, guys, as well. Okay. Right, so today we're on week 8 of the Irish Constitution Hour. In the first 6 weeks, we covered the preamble, the nation 1, 2, and 3, the articles 1, 2, and 3, and articles 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 of the state. Week 6, we commenced looking at fundamental rights, article 40 to 44, looking at article 38.1 in conjunction with article 40, personal freedom, and habeas corpus. Then last week, we continued with Article 40, personal rights. We highlighted in the last 2 weeks the natural law aspect within Articles 40 to 44, that certain rights and moral principles are inherent to all men and women and can be understood through reason regardless of government or legal systems. Natural rights being antecedent to all positive law. This week, we will look at Article 41, the family. Article 41 of the Irish Constitution acknowledges the special role of the family in society. It highlights the importance of the family as a fundamental unit of society, recognising its special position, and highlights the state's duty to support and protect the institution of the family. The Constitution recognises the family as the cornerstone of society and whose role and function are recognised as essential for the well-being of individuals and society as a whole. The Constitution recognises that the family has rights which no man can give away or take away. Remember, the family came before the state. And the family, it mentions the family being the natural unit group of society, and that will bring in the natural law aspect. The role of the mother is specifically recognised in the Irish Constitution. It acknowledges the unique contribution of mothers to the family and society. The Constitution emphasises the importance of supporting mothers in their role, particularly in the context of raising their children. This recognition underscores the state's responsibility to support and protect the family, acknowledging the central role that mothers play in society. During the time the Irish Constitution was being drafted in the 1930s, women's rights were a significant issue. At that time, there were strong emphasis on traditional family roles, and the Constitution reflected some of these societal values. While the drafting of the Irish Constitution in 1937 was largely influenced by male figures, there were women who had an impact on the broader social and political context of the time. For instance, Women like Hannah Sheehy Skeffington and Margaret Cousins were instrumental in advocating for women's rights and social reforms. Their activism helped pave the way for future changes. Even if they weren't directly involved in the drafting of the Constitution, their influence was felt in the push for social progress and the fight for equality, laying the groundwork for future generations. So I'll cast your mind back, guys, to this day last year, where we got the results of the referendum that took place. So last March, the 8th of March 2024, International Women's Day, despite the political, media and NGO sector investing heavily in a Yes, Yes campaign, the Irish people overwhelmingly rejected two proposed constitutional amendments by voting no to removing the words woman and mother, and that's Article 41, and replacing the words with carer and other durable relationships. So that was a big win for us last year, and it gave us confidence, I suppose, in the Constitution again. And I suppose it brings to mind people that would say that the Constitution is not worth the paper it's written on. Well, I would ask those people, number one, did they go out and vote? Number two, if they said yes, then I would ask them, well, what did you vote on? It was the 1937 Constitution you were voting to amend. So it's quite contradictory to say that, you don't believe it when you went out and voted on it. And if you didn't vote, I'm sorry to say this, but you're part of the problem in this country, So it was a fantastic day, the 9th of March last year, when we found out, and we all fought very hard for it ourselves. We were involved in campaigning as well. Information being put on thousands of leaflets, and myself and Mark and a few others went out and handed out leaflets up around Donegal, and then there was other people handing them out all around the country. So we had a good part to play in that, and we were delighted with the results. So yeah, that's what I have to say for the moment. Josh, I'll hand it over to you. All right.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you for your efforts put forth for that very consequential initiative. That was successful. We are happy to be joined today by our Irish constitutional analyst, Mark Anthony. So, Mark, over the last 7 weeks, we have covered the foundational elements of the Irish Constitution. And today is different. And it may be different in a global context, in that we are going to be discussing what the Irish Constitution says about the family. And I'll just take a moment here to read Article 41.1.1 from the Irish Constitution. I believe this is the English translation, so pardon that. 41.1.1. The state recognizes the family as the natural, primary, and fundamental unit group of society, and as a moral institution possessing inalienable and imprescriptible rights, which exist prior to and above positive law. Positive law is human-made law. 41.1.2. The state pledges to guard the institution of the family with special care and to protect it against attack, emphasizing its importance to the common good. 41.2. The state acknowledges that a woman's life within the home provides the state with a support without which the common good cannot be achieved. This has historically been interpreted as recognizing the role of women in the home. 41.2.2. The state commits to ensuring that mothers are not obliged by economic necessity to work outside the home to the neglect of their duties in the home. Article 41.3. The state pledges to protect the institution of marriage on which the family is founded and to guard it against attack. It also states that no law can be enacted to allow the dissolution of marriage. 41.3.2. This section originally dealt with divorce, but has since been amended. As of the original 1937 text, it prohibited divorce. But amendments, notably the 15th Amendment in 1995, now allow it under specific conditions. At this point, I'm going to hand the mic over to our constitutional analyst, Mr. Mark Anthony, for his comments on Article 41 of the Bunreacht na Mark?
Hello, good afternoon, people. It's good to have you all back. We're 2/3 of the way through. How unbelievable is that? Time flies. And we're getting into the nitty-gritty of it. As I always say, people, a constitution is a book with words in it. And people want always to know, well, what do I get out of the constitution? Well, the family and education. Article 41 and Article 42 of the Constitution are very profoundly linked in litigation in law. And I'll read out a couple of things here that I've found in J.M. Kelly's. So these Article 41 and 42 were articles and innovation. So they were calling them an innovation, inventory. So means original and using new ideas or methods. For example, you might describe the course or provisions or ventilation system as inventory. Sorry. Let me see here now. Innovate, to begin, establish, found, inaugurate, initiate, institute, introduce, launch, pioneer, plant, set up, or start. So, what was written in the second edition, 1984, the Irish Constitution by J.M. Kelly. These articles are among the most inventory in the entire Constitution. The Constitution of 1922, the Irish Free State Constitution, contained nothing at all about the family and marriage, and its references to education were confined to Article 8, which conformed with Article 16 of the Treaty of 1921 and corresponded with the present article of 44.2.4.6 and Article 10, which corresponded with the present Article 42.4 to the extent only that it proclaimed a right to be free elementary education. The articles are generally thought to have been inspired by people in encyclicals and by Catholic teachings. There was, however, a declaration in the German Constitution of 1919 of special status and the state's special protection of marriage and motherhood, as well as of parents' rights and duties, in Article 119 of the German Constitution in 1919. Justice is being administered under our own constitution, wherein very definitely the family is recognized as a fundamental unit of society, as a moral institution with imprescriptible rights. This theory will have to be reconsidered under the new light because no inconsistent doctrines of old courts of equity can prevail against the principles of the Constitution. Under radically different politically, equity was shy of acknowledging all natural obligations of a mother, while the law in the same spirit boggled at finding any enforceable obligation for parents to support their children. The case law surrounding Articles 41 and 42 frequently rests with both articles because of the close mutual connection of their subject matter. Accordingly, their effect will be considered not section by section, but within certain topics to which one or both articles have been material in litigation. So that's very important, what I just read out there. And when the Constitution, the drafters of the Constitution and all, Ireland or Era was very Catholic at the time. It was only the top 6 counties in the northeast which were predominantly unionist of the Protestant. But the Christian doctrine and even the Catholic social teachings include the dignity of human life, justice, peace, and the option for the poor. Dignity of human life. The Catholic Church teaches that human life is sacred and that every person's dignity. This belief is the foundation of the Catholic social teaching. Every person's life and dignity should be respected and supported from conception until natural death. Justice, treating others fairly as you would like to be treated. Catholics should not discriminate against others. Peace, allowing people to live together in harmony and avoid conflict. Striving to find a way of getting on with people you disagree with. Option for the poor. Imitating Christ's love for the poor and working by to create a society where the needs of the poor are always considered first. Call to family, community, and participating in the community's economics, politics, law, and policies that uphold marriage and the family. Other Catholic social teachings include solidarity, subsidiarity, and participation, the common good, and the care of the common home. So there is the common good aspect in there, and that's communitarianism. But that is all within the preamble, where but the dignity and the freedom of the individual is assured above all else. So that is including the children as well. Family and religious rights. The only feature of fundamental rights declarations which is original and unusual is in Articles 41 and 42, which deal with the closely allied topics of the family and the education of children. These articles are wholly inspired by Christian, or more specifically, by Catholic orthodoxy, or in particular, a well-known ecclesiasticals of modern popes. And it is they, above everything else in the Constitution, which have excited most admiration among Catholic observers. Not surprisingly, Irish judges have more earnestly considered and implied these 2 articles than anything else in fundamental rights group. They afford, it is true, a freer field for judicial interpretation, in that the principles contained in them are, for the most part, not qualified so as to make them powerless against legislative discretion. But they equally, no doubt, that their effectiveness owes something to the Christian educational background and its instinctively Christian disposition of the judges. The result has been that there is now several areas in family law in which the power of the legislator is substantially limited, or in which rules formerly familiar in Irish courts are no longer applicable. It will be seen, therefore, that Article 41 and 42, for their turgid phraseology, and in spite of the fact that nearly all the principles contained in them already existed in common law, have fulfilled an important and unuseful function, it is quite possible that their importance will increase with time, and that the judiciary, unembarrassed in its context by political emergency and unrestricted by qualifications such as Article 40 or Article 43 contains will read out of them new and useful rules of law. Sir Jane, there it is a year from we had that historic vote of 73%. The question on family and replace the word family with carers or other durable relationships, and replace the word mother, with care or other durable relationships. So durable relationships, right, equals more mass immigration. A recent Red Sea poll report confirmed 75% of Irish people have said we have taken in too many refugees. Yet the government, and this was last year, people, this was one of the leaflets that we delivered. There was 270,000 of them printed. We done a good campaign with Wake Up Era, and we got the information out there. So we have taken in too many refugees, yet government and all opposition parties continue undemocratically to support policies which are enabling the continuation of tens of thousands of economic migrants entering our country. Many of these are not subject to proper background or medical checks. This is potentially placing communities all over Ireland in danger. If the proposed word durable relationship is inserted into Article 41.1, it will lead to another huge increase in immigration, as economic migrants can declare all their siblings, relatives as durable relationships. It is widely accepted that the average family unification number for non-nationals is 20 persons each. EU laws have already placed EU laws already in place around the term durable relationships. We looked it up in EU legislation and done a word search on durable relationships, and it came up 45,000 times. The Attorney General of the state at the time withheld information, and the government says that they wanted it held till after the referendum was held because they thought it would have detrimental effect on the outcome. Senator Michael McDowell, Sharon Keoghan, and Senator Ronan Mullins in the Seanad were warning of the dangers of durable relationships and the implications on taxation laws and all going into the future, and litigation and the legal aid system being stretched till its limits. And we're seeing that now with the deportation orders and people appealing it, and it's putting a massive strain on the Irish judiciary system. So the EU laws already in place around the term durable relationships. The alarming, wide-ranging and flimsy criteria deemed relevant include emotional, financial, economic and physical links between the partners. Durable relationships in EU law. Right now, the rights to declare durable relationship as family members are left to the discretion of the member state on the basis of their own legislation. So they were trying to change the policy, the national policy, the constitution, to allow for durable relationships. If we allow durable relationships to become law, i.e. via referendum, everything changes. Now, Minister for Fine Gael has a rare moment of truth. On the 5th of the 12th, 2023, during an interview in Virgin Media, Fine Gael Minister of State and Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment Neil Richmond said, "This has serious consequences, particularly when we think of immigration law and proving that someone else is a family member, or for family reunification. This will allow that to be accommodated as well." At all turns, current political parties have gaslit the Irish people and all things immigration. Do not believe them. This is time when they downplay the significance of allowing the words durable relationships to become constitutional law. So, on the 25th day of June 2024, Justice Minister at the time, Helen McEntee, extended the Emergency Powers Bill, and after doing so, guillotined the EU Migration Pact through both houses of the Oireachtas with little to no scrutiny. And I get till it later, but it had financial cost till the state per annum if you didn't take in up to 30,000 refugees, economic migrants, or whatever the case may be. And that in turn will dilute the Christian family in the future if this unsustainable trajectory continues of unvetted, what would you call it, immigration and refugee asylum applicants coming in to this tiny island. They have stated in Ireland 2040 plan that they plan to increase numbers in ERA by so they would plan maybe a few million by the looks of it. The infrastructure is not fit for purpose. It was all done for vested interests and greed. And it will have in the future detrimental, profound, irreversible consequences on a Christian nation state as proclaimed in the preamble. By introducing multiculturalism by law enrolled in the Supreme Court, we are a Christian nation state. So I'll pass it back to you there, Josh, if you want to come in on that.
Yes. Okay. Wow. There's a lot to voyage here. If I understand you correctly, it appears that people are leveraging the Constitution to benefit their causes as it relates to immigration. And maybe a term we used from the last episode was unwelcomed guests. Do I understand this correctly, that it's the article related to the family that newly arrived immigrants are leveraging to their advantage to usher in a whole new group of family members or associates into the country of ERA? Do I understand this correctly, that Article 41 is being leveraged to usher in unwanted guests?
They were trying to change it in accordance with law. So that's what they came with the 39th and 40th Amendment of the Constitution on the 8th of March. And they announced it on the 8th of March 2023, International Women's Day. A gay Indian man. And then Roderick O'Gorman, who was the Minister for Education, I think, and Norma Foley. They were promoting it. Now, Article 41 is the backbone. Article 41 and 42 is the backbone of our Christian constitution, our national written constitution. Because in education, like you have education there, and it says the state acknowledges that the primary natural educator of the child is the family and guarantees to respect the inalienable duty of the parents to provide according to their means religious and moral and intellectual, physical and social education of their children. Parents shall be free to provide the education in their homes or in private schools or in schools recognised established by the state. The state shall not oblige parents in violation of their conscience of lawful preference to send their children to schools established by the state, or in particular any type of school designated by the state. It goes on there to read a few other things, people. So the mother and grandmothers in the natural order of society would be seen as the matriarchs of society, the nurturers of society, the givers of society. They give unconditional love without asking. They give it to the child. And yes, father, I'm a single parent and I have two children and I reared them by myself. And I had to play the part as mother and father. But I just cannot give that motherly touch, no matter how hard I try. You know what I mean? I have a young girl who's a teenager here now, and that motherly touch just, yes, I can nurture and I can love and I can do all that. But just that motherly thing is just not there. And I can't be a mother. You know, mothers are very special. Woman. Why? Because they have a womb. Without women, society fails. Without the givers of life, society fails. That's why they're protected in our constitution, to actually protect the future preservation of Christian nationhood, which was founded in 1916 and proclaimed and declared in 1919. We're a Christian nation, both north, south, east, and west. It's the biggest professed faith on this island. Yes, people have fell out with the Catholic Church because of historical abuse claims and whatnot. But faith is completely different. Faith in Christ, Christ our Savior, Christ is King. If we bring in a culture which they now have put into EU legislation, durable relationships, and they have guillotined this EU migration pact. This EU migration pact will have profound consequences on the future of housing, the future of education. The Justice Minister actually guillotined that through, came out there during the week and was saying, because she's now the minister for, after the reshuffle of the new government was formed, she is now the Minister for Education and Children. And she is now contradicting herself, or her position, her past position, because of her decisions to guillotine that through. There's now unsustainable numbers for education in the schools. And that takes translators and it takes all sorts, and it's the strain that is putting on the economy, the burden. It is now becoming a burden. And there was a lady, Suzanne Delaney, and Elon Musk shared her post, and her child, I think, was the only English speaking child in primary school, and she came home and cried one day. And this is an era. Everybody else then went on to speak in different languages, and she had nobody to speak to. So that's a very sad situation in Irish schools. Yes, we're charitable people. Nobody's saying that we're not. But when's enough enough?
Okay, Mark, I want to ask you something here about this here. March 8th, 2024, International Women's Day referendum.
Gaslighting.
Gaslighting. Now, this was a referendum where everybody in Era could vote, including the occupied counties in the north, correct?
No.
No.
No, we don't get a vote. The occupied counties in the north, as people talk about second-class citizens, we would be seen as second-class citizens. Why? Because in 2018 there was the abortion referendum. The abortion referendum was passed in the south. So that made it constitutionally astute because three provinces voted on it and they call that a majority. We were left out of that vote. But because it became constitutionally, it bounced over to Westminster, and Westminster then bounced it back over into the north here, their administrative construct, Stormont institutions. And they told them that the abortion, so now we in the north there is Protestants and Catholics mainly, and they're good churchgoers and good chapel goers and whatnot, and they did not get a say in the abortion legislation. But not only did they bring in abortion legislation into the north, they brought in the most tyrannical, draconian abortion legislation in Western Europe, right up until the day of birth nearly. I think some of it is, it's really, really bad. It was the same with gay marriage and civil partnerships. They done it in the south, and the constitutional referendum on it, they passed it, so it bounced over to Westminster and EU law, and they came into the Stormont institutions, and it was enforced upon the people up here as well. So
Okay, hold on here, Mark. I don't mean to cut you off here, but is this a common practice? I just for people that are listening now, the Catholic part of Era, the South, voted in favor of abortion, and the results of which I have not investigated, but nevertheless, it passed. Catholics in the South voted in favor of abortion, and in the occupied counties in the North, they didn't get to vote on this. This here legislation was taken from the South, and then Westminster implemented it in the North, and the people of the North had no ability, no say in the matter. Is this sort of common practice? Are there other examples where the South passes something and then Westminster will implement it in the North, not giving the people of the North, which, mind you, there are 4 to 5 million people there, they don't have a say in it, and it's just implemented. Is this common practice?
Every referendum that's held in the south will have instrumental effect in the north, and the people haven't really figured it out, but I hope that this helps them figure it out today. The divorce legislation was passed in the south, then it bounced across to Westminster because it was constitutionally, you were able to do it, it was constitutional in the south. Then Westminster pushed the legislation with the EU or whatever through here. Yeah, that's the way it works. So we don't get a say in it. We get a vote every 4 years. We go out and we vote these people in, and after that, we don't get a say in anything. So whatever the South does and whatever the EU does and whatever the UK does, they'll put it all into a big bowl and come out with the worst possible case scenario for us up here, and we don't get a say. So, and we don't get a vote in the presidential elections, and we don't get anything, but yet these people coming in from different countries are getting Irish passports, and they're getting able, after the residence or whatever for a certain 6 months or something, they're able to start voting and do things like that. But yet the people in the north, who I have an Irish passport, I'm Irish, and I don't. So we, yes, are still second-class citizens. We were just fed this big bowl full of hopium as people would call it. But I want to get back to, so we know that the delegates of Ireland, the government of Ireland, okay, the administrative construct, are going across to Washington, D.C., and they're supposed to be going for the St. Patrick's Day celebrations, but they're going 5 days early. For the 12th is the scheduled appointment. And on the 6th of March this year, President Donald J. Trump brought in the proclamation of Irish-American relations, and March is Irish-American Relations Month. So myself and Sarah, last Sunday night, Monday night, and Tuesday night, says we would pen something together and send the administration of the newly elected administration, the Trump administration, a copy of Amban Racht, the affidavit and all that we sent on the 15th of January 2024 as well, to 520 recipients, and a list of the 72 genders that was brought in the hate crime aims to protect genders and other than male and female. Senator Sharon Kilgan spent 25 minutes in the Senate on the 17th of October 2024 listing genders to the Minister of Justice, Helen McEntee. The genders are listed below A to Z. I won't go through them because it took her 25 minutes or more. But this is the letter that was sent on behalf of we the people of Eire. Vice President Vance, the White House, 16 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington District, Columbia, 20500. 6th of January, or 6th of March, 2025. Dear Vice President Vance, firstly, we would like to extend our warmest congratulations to President Donald J. Trump on his extraordinary achievement on securing a second term in the prestigious Oval Office. And to you, Vice President Vance, congratulations on your magnificent achievement on securing the office of the Vice President of the United States of America. We wish the entire team, our Trump administration, every success. What exciting times lay ahead for the people of America and indeed the world. We rate you as one constitutional republic to another, seeking to establish concord with other nations and friendly cooperation between our two nations, as outlined in the preamble and Article 29.1 of the Irish Constitution, Bunreacht na Hearn, 1937. The Irish Constitution was deeply influenced by the American Constitution, incorporating principles such as we the people, separation of powers, and judicial review. Based on the most significant US Supreme Court ruling, Marbury versus Madison, 1803, which established the principles of judicial review of executive powers and declared that the Constitution is not just a piece of paper, it is the law of the land. Having recently listened to your powerful speech at the Munich Security Conference, where you addressed the suppression of free speech across Europe and the dangers of unchecked migration, we are encouraged by your stance. Your concerns resonate deeply with the situation we find ourselves here in the national territory of Eire. Eire is facing an unprecedented crisis due to an unsustainable levels of economic migration and international protection applicants. Our infrastructure is overwhelmed, and there have been a sharp increase in violent and sexual crimes. Women and children are feeling very vulnerable in their own communities, where they are supposed to feel safe and protected. Yet the government of Ireland refuses to acknowledge the profound impact this is having on national life. Recent data underscores the scale of the problem. In the first quarter of 2024, 78% of asylum seekers at Dublin Airport presented with either no documents or false documentation. Furthermore, in April 2024, Justice Minister Helen McEntee stated over 80% of asylum seekers entered via the land border with Northern Ireland. Despite this, authorities have failed to initiate a more robust screening, vetting, and deportation process. Self-deportation does not qualify and is unfit for purpose. On the 8th of March 2024, International Women's Day, despite the political and media NGO sector investing heavily in a Yes, Yes campaign, the Irish people overwhelmingly rejected the two proposed constitutional amendments by voting no, no to removing the words mother and family, Article 41, and replacing those fundamental institutions with the word cure and other durable relationships. However, on 25th of June 2025, Justice Minister Helen McEntee extended the emergency powers legislation, or 2024 extended the emergency powers legislation by 1 year, with the option to extend to 2030. In turn, two significant pieces of legislation were guillotined through the houses of the Oireachtas with little to no scrutiny. One being the EU Migration Pact, which reintroduces durable relationships via backdoor emergency legislation. Notably, before the referendum, the government refused to define durable relationship, despite appearing nearly 45,000 times in the EU policy documents, and people such as the constitutionally astute Senator Michael McDowell warning of the possible implications and warning of the possible implications. Durable relationships will undoubtedly further exacerbate the state-manufactured crisis. Under EU Migration Pact, up to 30,000 migrants will be relocated per year, and if Ireland does not fulfil its obligations, there will be fines of up to 620 million euros per annum. This will be an indefinite burden on Irish people, not only economically, but also socially, due to the change in national demographics, including future voting forecasts. If this unsustainable pattern is allowed to continue unchecked, the Irish Constitution affirms its inalienable right to self-determination. The Irish nation hereby affirms its inalienable, indefeasible, and sovereign right to choose its own form of government, to determine its relations with other nations, and to develop its life, political, economic, cultural, in accordance with its own genius and traditions. The EU Migration Pact fundamentally alters national policy without consent of the Irish people. Article 6 affirms that all government authority derives from the people, and it is the people that have the final say on national policy. A change of this magnitude is a constitutional issue and requires national referendum. Freedom of expression in Ireland is under severe scrutiny. The Criminal Justice Hate Offences Act 2024 was passed whilst the previous speech provisions have been temporarily shelved. The government in March 2023 set up new broadcasting regulator commission demand, which will now include regulation media to tackle what it deems harmful content or inciting hatred. Recently, several independent journalists, Irish nationals, and elected representatives who were members of the X community, formerly Twitter, were contacted by the platform, informing them that Garda Síochána, the Irish police force, sought a court order to access their online data, including private communications. Such actions are repugnant to the Irish Constitution, as set out in the preamble and Article 40, for example. Although hate speech provisions were paused, gender identity recognition and equality were inserted into the Criminal Justice Hate Offences Act 2024. This being the second significant piece of legislation guillotined through with little to no scrutiny. This unnatural, anti-human, anti-family legislation now recognises at least 72 genders, granting them protected status. Yet Article 40.1 of the Irish Constitution affirms that all are equal before the law, while the preamble assures the dignity and the freedom of the individual. The Irish Constitution already permits for man, woman, his, her, family, person, citizen, as the natural order of a Christian nation state. The Constitution does not permit for an additional genders. This new legal framework creates inequality and is constitutionally unsound. Changes of this magnitude require popular opinion and consent of the people. It cannot be doubted that the people, so asserting and acknowledging in the preamble their obligations to our divine Lord Jesus Christ, were proclaiming a deeply religious conviction and faith, an intention to adopt the Constitution with that conviction and faith with Christian beliefs. It is worth noting, Paul Hickey, the husband of Justice Minister Helen McEntee, now Education and Youth Minister, is a senior executive of AbbVie, one of the world's largest manufacturers of so-called puberty blockers. These drugs are used to suppress sexual development in children undergoing gender transition. This raises serious concerns about the conflict of interest, and indeed vested interest, which is not consistent with what is necessary for the benefit of the Irish people, as pursuant to Article 6.1 of the Irish language text, which takes superiority in Irish law. The very essence of sovereignty is the right to say yes and the right to say no, a right now being denied to the Irish people. This will be irreversible consequences, will have irreversible consequences for Irish independence, sovereignty and democratic principles. The 2024 general election saw the lowest turnout ever since 1923. Only 50% of eligible voters were registered, and only 50% of those turned out to cast their vote. The current coalition government does not have popular opinion and the will of the people behind it. On the 2nd of September 1939, on Taoiseach Eamon de Valera warned of this very possibility, stating, "I do not think it is within the wit of man to devise a phrase that will prevent, in certain circumstances, an unscrupulous majority from betraying its democratic obligations and overturning democracy, if it considers itself strong enough to do so. A democracy, any representative government, in order to be successful, has to be run in according to rules, has to have popular opinion behind it, and to be supported in that way. If at any time an occasion should arise when a majority could still flout the ideals of representative government, it would be done otherwise, and there would be an end to this system of government. We urge you, Vice President Vance, to take notice of what is happening in Eire and to stand with the Irish people in our current struggle to preserve our nation, our sovereignty, and our constitution. We also ask that you and President Trump take into serious consideration what we have outlined when meeting with Taoiseach Micheál Martin on the 12th of March, prior to the celebration of our national patron saint, St. Patrick. Sincerely, Mark Anthony, Sarah Jane, on behalf of we, the people of Eire.
So this is a letter that Mark and Sarah Jane are sending to the Vice President of the United States.
It's been sent. It was sent on the 6th. And it has also been brought by courier to the US Embassy in Dublin.
The idea, Josh, is that it would get there before Micheál Martin sits down with the Vice President and President to have a chat. So we're hoping he gets a bit of a dressing down prior to the 12th?
Oh, yes. Ideally, Zelensky style. Let's have a similar setup, have this Irish delegation on those nice golden chairs. And just I want to provide a quote here. We are closing, but I do want to provide a quote from J.D. Vance's speech on March 6th. And he said, quote, and he said this in front of all of these European leaders and generals. He said, "The threat I worry most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. What I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values that are shared with the United States of America." And I just want to provide this here brief comment. What is a threat? What is a threat? I think about the medieval philosopher Boethius and his seminal work that he wrote while he was in prison for crimes he didn't commit, ultimately to be executed for said crimes. He wrote The Consolation of Philosophy. And what he said about evil, what he said about threats from within, I thought was pretty profound. He said, it is only through the power of God to which evils may also be good, when by their proper use, he elicits a good result. And this is what we ought to perceive threats from within as being in our own groups, in our own countries, in our own states. These are not threats, they are opportunities. We just have to see the good in this evil. We have to use our tools to leverage these evils to become good. And this is what these individuals who are out of their mind really don't understand, is that they're providing good people with opportunities to elicit good results. So if you would like to make a final comment there, Mark, on this wonderful endeavor, this is a nice surprise. Excellent, well read. If you'd like to make a comment here, we got about 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Go ahead.
It's just when things become relevant. When do things become relevant? Well, suppose when the mainstream media sort of announce it. So they announced that he was going on the 12th because we were sitting waiting patiently to see did he get an invite, and he got an invite for the 12th. We haven't seen anything for the 17th, so we're wondering, is that a precursor? Does he get an invite for the 17th? Donald J. Trump already made a good gesture towards them by the American-Irish proclamation there that was signed on the 6th, actually coincidentally the day that we sent this. So we were sending looking friendly cooperation with other nations as prescribed in the Constitution by international law. So we're looking them to take recognition that our Constitution is being diluted, the family is being diluted, fundamental rights, freedom of speech is being diluted, and they're using emergency legislation to guillotine these through, and they will have profound consequences on Irish nationhood and what would you call it, culture and traditions and our genius going into the future. So with that being said, I hope it gets there on time, and I hope it's recognised, and that's all we can do. It's in the hands of our Lord, and it being Lent, hopefully he sees and hears our plea, because it was on Easter Monday, the 24th of April 1916, the Easter Rising, and it was on the third day he rose again. According to the scripture.
This then concludes the Irish Constitution Hour for March 9th, 2025. Hello, everybody.